Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Professor Fleming, and the purpose of this short video is to help the students understand the organization of the studio and the role that integration will play in the development of an integrative design project. So this is the Prezi file that we'll be using this semester. It has all of the ingredients that go into the first 8 weeks and maybe beyond. So while on one level it's a framework, it's also a place for students to upload information and share information. The premise behind this first 8 weeks is that a lot of sustainability occurs at the beginning of a project before pencil goes to paper. And I am very aware of the fact that all of you have had done some of this already in SDN 603, Sustainable Systems. So we'll be working together to rework this if necessary. But for right now, let me just take you through the different steps. And also I want to say that normally when you do a studio project in an educational setting, the professor writes the design brief, develops the program, picks the site, does all those kind of things that a student would then work through. Because you're graduate students and because sustainability, so much of sustainability occurs at the level of the beginning, this is going to be an opportunity for you to get involved in that. So let me just take you through some of the aspects of the studio. So you see a number of different modules, Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, Module 4. And this first week we're going to have project introduction, research, findings, and challenges and opportunities are all going to be in this first week. Notice the arrows that move through this tell us how we're going to be doing integration. Eventually all of these arrows will come together. For example, the program analysis is an opportunity to do some synthesis, so are the guiding principles actually. So let me just take you through some of these steps and show you where we're headed with the project. You're going to be introduced to the project later in one of the topics. This is going to be the extent of information that we're going to give you. The rest you're going to drive on your own through doing research. And at the source of all integration, you're probably tired of seeing this diagram already, but reminding you that somewhere in between the ethics and nature lies the designer, and we're the bridge between those two. And if we can build those bridges artfully and with beauty, then we're probably going to be pretty successful designers. The source of all integration, I'm going to argue, is the second invisible hand, which, unlike the first invisible hand of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, which is all about profit, this is about empathy for fellow humans and empathy for the planet, empathy for the future. It's all about the designer being connected to the larger framework within which they're working. And in order for us to do that, we're going to see some familiar frameworks here using integral theory as a way for us to understand both the subjective and objective aspects of design and the individual and collective views. Again, these are things that we've all already known, but we're just using these frameworks to make them more visible and hopefully more usable. So upper left, perspective of experiences, the phenomenological aspects of design, the way individuals experience space, intangible, unmeasurable, and hopefully beautiful. And the upper right is the exact opposite. These are facts and figures, objective measures of location, time, and place within a point, hence the IT, it. It is located, it is. And this is an important part of sustainable design, and actually sustainable design is also associated with maximizing performance and number crunching. We know that a more holistic view puts that in contrast with the perspective of experiences. And of course, culture shapes the way we understand space, the way we use space, the way we feel comfortable in space. So we want to study some of that. It also contains all of our ethical foundations, whether it be religious or secular. And finally, the systems and how all these kind of things interact together in a complex system to create a sense of reality. And certainly sustainable design has always fallen into that category as well. So with that, I'm going to take you through how that might play out. So the perspective of experiences, you're going to see some of the normal site analysis or site inventory categories. For example, views and vistas is something that you've probably done a million times, or at least 1,000 times in design projects. All we're doing here is placing these in logical orders and sequences and quadrants that help us to understand the relationship between the parts. And then we're going to talk about the maximizing performance or the perspective of behaviors. And again, very simple, straightforward numbers, names acoustics, for example. So how can we measure sound on the site? How can we measure, for example, wind direction at different times and different seasons? And doing that without any kind of interpretation or subjective value. Just the facts, please. In the lower left-hand quadrant, perspective of cultures. Not surprisingly, we're looking at the culture of the neighborhood where the building or project is going to be built. We're looking at the client's visions and values, not their organization, but actually just what they believe and their philosophy. And that can be further understood by understanding the stakeholders. We do have a semi-real client for this project, and I've been interviewing different people from the client and posting them in a file that I'll show you later. At the end, then, we have our systems point of view, our perspective of systems. And here you would again see things that you would expect to see in any site analysis. What we're trying to do here is make them visible and connect them to the larger sense of integration. So for example, circulation patterns. The site that we're going to be using is very tricky in terms of traffic patterns, public transportation, and so it's going to be a challenge for the design team to work within those systems. So that's the conceptual framework for the studio. Going further, we're going to try to connect what you learned in the research and actually try to use it definitively in the design. So these red arrows are meant to capture how students are going to leverage their research in order to create not only guiding principles but design directives and develop the program. So for example, findings, challenges, and opportunities, it's very straightforward. Views to the river are beautiful. Okay, so that's pretty obvious, but it's important to write all these things down. When you're working with clients, it's really important to take them through your logic pattern, and this Prezi is really meant to develop a logic pattern for sustainability. From that are challenges and opportunities. So for example, resolving the desire for solar gain with the desire to maintain the orthogonal, sorry for the typo, urban geometry. So those will be in tension, and it's the role of the designer to resolve tensions as best as possible. So from an experiential point of view, how someone approaches the site and sees buildings, whether they see them head on as normally you would in a city or you see rotations, will impact the experience of the user. From there, we're going to be going on to, in Module 2, looking at guiding principles. Module 3, looking at the program. That's going to be square footages and requirements. And then we're going to go on to benchmarking. And with the benchmarking, what's nice is there's going to be some case studies so that we can set target budgets and set environmental goals by which you will be evaluated at the end of the project. So in a sense, you're developing your own evaluation criteria for the project. And moving a little bit further forward, sorry about that. Guiding principles we're going to be developing in a couple weeks. And then we talked about the programmatic analysis. Eventually we're going to have a completed design brief. And this is what I was mentioning before about professors developing the design brief and handing it to the students with all the requirements already written. In this case, you're setting the requirements for your own project. And that's part of what it means to be in graduate school as opposed to undergraduate school. You're really being trained to be leaders of the process, not a participant in the process. And eventually, depending on the conversations that we have, we'll be starting the integrative design process, actually putting pencil to paper. All right. Thank you.